The battlefield fell silent as the massive Viking warrior's eyes rolled back, foam gathering at his mouth. His fellow warriors stepped back in reverence and fear. What happened next defied every law of human biology, and modern neuroscience has finally proven how the Vikings unlocked superhuman abilities that we're only beginning to understand today. When a Viking berserker entered their battle trance, witnesses described transformations that seemed impossible. Their pupils would dilate completely, turning their eyes into black voids that struck terror into enemy hearts. Their skin would flush red as blood vessels expanded, and their body temperature would rise so dramatically that steam would literally rise from their bodies, even in freezing Nordic weather. The most terrifying change was the foam that would gather at their mouths, mixed with blood from biting their own tongues and lips. Their breathing would become so rapid and deep that it created an otherworldly growling sound. Enemy soldiers reported that these warriors no longer looked human. They had become something far more dangerous and primal. Archaeological evidence from Viking battlefields reveals berserkers who continued fighting with wounds that should have killed them instantly. Skeletons show massive bone damage, shattered ribs, split skulls, severed limbs, yet the warriors lived long enough for partial healing to begin. They felt no pain during their trance state, allowing them to fight with injuries that would incapacitate normal humans. Modern pain research explains this phenomenon through endorphin flooding. During extreme stress, the brain releases massive amounts of natural opioids that are literally hundreds of times more powerful than morphine. Viking berserkers had learned to trigger this chemical cascade at will, creating a state of complete pain immunity that lasted for hours during battle. Medieval chronicles describe berserkers performing feats of strength that seemed supernatural. They could bend iron swords with their bare hands, shatter wooden shields by striking them, and throw grown men through the air like children. Norse sagas speak of berserkers lifting massive boulders and tearing down wooden fortress walls during their frenzied states. Neuroscience reveals that humans normally use only about 30% of their muscle capacity due to built-in safety mechanisms that prevent injury. During extreme stress states, these inhibitions can be completely overridden, allowing access to full muscular potential. Berserkers had mastered techniques to deliberately trigger this state, multiplying their effective strength by up to 3 times normal human limits. The berserkergang trance wasn't random. It was a carefully orchestrated ritual, passed down through generations of Viking warriors. The process began hours before battle, with specific breathing techniques that altered brain chemistry. They would hyperventilate in precise patterns while focusing their minds on their animal spirit guides, usually bears or wolves. Archaeological evidence suggests they also used natural psychoactive substances found in Nordic fungi and plants. Recent analysis of preserved Viking ceremonial vessels shows residues of compounds that could trigger altered consciousness states. Combined with their mental techniques, these substances helped push their nervous systems into the extreme state required for berserkergang. During their trance, berserkers believed they literally transformed into their animal spirits. Witnesses described them moving on all fours, making animal sounds, and exhibiting behaviors completely unlike normal humans. They would bite and claw at enemies, rather than using weapons, and their fighting patterns mimicked the attack strategies of bears and wolves. This wasn't mere performance. Brain imaging studies of modern warriors in similar states show activation patterns in areas associated with primitive survival instincts. The berserkers had learned to suppress their higher brain functions and operate purely from their most ancient neural circuits, essentially rewiring their consciousness to match that of wild predators. Berserkers were famous for their complete absence of fear, charging single-handedly into enemy armies of hundreds or thousands. They would leap from their long ships into icy waters, wearing heavy armor, swim to shore, and immediately attack fortified positions without hesitation. This wasn't courage. It was the complete shutdown of their fear response systems. Modern neuroscience identifies the amygdala as the brain's fear center, constantly scanning for threats and triggering fight-or-flight responses. During berserkergang, this system appears to have been completely suppressed. Brain scans of people in similar trance states show virtually no amygdala activity, creating a state of absolute fearlessness that allowed for seemingly suicidal tactical decisions. Historical accounts describe berserkers fighting continuously for up to 3 days without food, water, or sleep. They would battle through entire campaigns, while their fellow warriors rested and recovered, maintaining their frenzied state through sheer force of will and their altered brain chemistry. This extraordinary endurance came from their body's emergency stress response systems being locked in the on position. Massive doses of adrenaline and noradrenaline flooded their systems, while their liver dumped stored energy directly into their bloodstream. Their metabolisms shifted into a hyperdrive state that could sustain superhuman performance far beyond normal human endurance limits. After their battle trance ended, berserkers faced severe consequences. They would collapse into deep unconsciousness that could last for days, their bodies completely depleted from the extreme metabolic demands. Many described amnesia, having no memory of their actions during the berserkergang state. Some berserkers never fully recovered from repeated trance episodes. The extreme stress on their nervous and cardiovascular systems caused permanent damage. Medieval texts describe aged berserkers with tremors, memory loss, and violent mood swings, symptoms that modern medicine recognizes as traumatic brain injury from their extreme altered states. Becoming a berserker required years of intensive training that began in childhood. Young warriors learned meditation techniques, breathing patterns, and mental visualization methods that would allow them to access the trance state. The training was so rigorous that many candidates never succeeded in achieving true berserkergang. Master berserkers guarded their techniques jealously, teaching only their most promising students. The training involved gradually building tolerance to pain, learning to suppress normal fear responses, and developing the mental discipline required to trigger and control the trance state. This knowledge was considered sacred and was never shared with outsiders. Recent advances in neuroscience have finally explained how berserkers achieved their superhuman abilities. During their trance, their brains released massive quantities of endorphins, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine. This chemical cocktail created a state unlike anything seen in normal human experience. Brain imaging technology shows that people in similar trance states exhibit completely altered neural activity patterns. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thinking and fear, goes almost completely quiet. Meanwhile, the brainstem and limbic system become hyperactive, creating a state of pure instinct and aggression that made berserkers into living weapons. Excavations of Viking battlefields have provided concrete evidence of berserker abilities. Skeletal remains show warriors who survived and fought with injuries that should have been immediately fatal. Weapon analysis reveals damage patterns consistent with superhuman strength being applied to iron and steel weapons. Chemical analysis of preserved Viking ceremonial items has revealed traces of psychoactive compounds that could trigger altered consciousness states. Ancient burial sites contain specialized equipment used in berserker rituals, including breathing apparatus and meditation tools that correlate with historical descriptions of their training methods. Modern genetic research suggests that berserker abilities may have had a hereditary component. Certain genetic variations affect how the brain processes stress hormones and neurotransmitters, making some individuals naturally more capable of achieving extreme altered states. Population genetic studies of modern Scandinavians show clusters of genetic markers associated with enhanced stress response and pain tolerance. These same markers are found in ancient DNA extracted from presumed berserker burials, suggesting that the ability to enter berserkergang may have been partially inherited rather than purely learned. Modern military studies have documented similar trance states in contemporary warriors during intense combat. Special Forces soldiers report entering flow states, where time slows down, pain disappears, and physical abilities are dramatically enhanced. However, these modern states are typically brief and uncontrolled. What made Viking berserkers unique was their ability to deliberately trigger and maintain these states for extended periods. Modern warriors achieve similar neurochemical changes accidentally during life or death situations. But berserkers had developed systematic methods to access these superhuman abilities at will through their ritualistic training. Today's neuroscientists and performance specialists study berserker techniques to develop new training methods for elite athletes and military personnel. Understanding how Vikings controlled their neurochemistry has led to breakthrough research in pain management, stress response optimization, and peak performance enhancement, professional athletes now use modified versions of berserker breathing techniques and mental conditioning to achieve superior performance states. Military special operations units have incorporated elements of berserker training to help soldiers manage fear and access enhanced physical capabilities during critical missions, proving that these ancient techniques remain relevant in our modern world. The Vikings discovered something profound about human potential, that our normal limitations are largely self-imposed by our own neural programming. Through their berserkergang techniques, they proved that humans can access extraordinary abilities that science is only now beginning to understand. Perhaps the real question isn't how they became superhuman, but why we've forgotten how to unlock our own hidden potential.